one-man game.
It's showtime, folks!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Through the Waiver Wire. Today we're talking about the top 3 stashes in fantasy football, and I'm also going to talk about my streaming kicker of the week. So let's get right into it. First up, we have Dion Lewis from New England Patriots. He got in some limited work today, limited work throughout the week in practice, and it looks like he has a shot to return this week. Last year Dion Lewis was quite the revelation. In only 7 games, he had 234 yards, and he also had 388 receiving yards with 50 targets, mind you. He was, for lack of a better term, he was pretty much the second pass option for many of those games with Tom Brady. The offense goes through Gronk, and then Dion Lewis got his opportunities last year. And looking at the situation this year, you have James White there, and he's been filling that receiving back role quite fine next to LeGarrette Blount. But Dion Lewis is going to come back, and if he starts to look like a semblance of the Dion Lewis that we saw last year, I feel very confident in saying that he's going to take over that job. And with this offense, he has the opportunity to just go plain off. So looking at this week, if you have the roster space, I'd recommend rostering Dion Lewis and waiting back to see what happens. Next up on the list is James Starks. He got in a limited practice as well. This is pretty much the ultimate wait and see situation, because the Packers run so many people at that running back spot to where it's just darn near impossible to guess who's going to be the starter. So especially this week, Tom Montgomery has been getting the carries heading into this week. It still looks strange with that number 88 coming out the backfield, but he's getting carries. Don Jackson gets carries every now and then, and even Randall Cobb get back there every here and again. But if Starks comes back, I think he's worth it. If you have an open spot on your bench, he's worth picking up. But I'm not crazy about him. But it's worth picking. It's definitely worth picking him up, because he used to be the thorn in my side when I had Eddie Lacy, and the Packers would trust him just as much as they would trust Eddie Lacy back in those years. So I can see him eventually taking over that role for good, and he's a receiving back out of the backfield. So if I were you, I would definitely pick him up and wait to see what happens. Next up on the list is Sammy Watkins. Now, I don't really hear people really talking about Sammy Watkins a whole lot when it comes to stashes, but there was a report out there that Sammy Watkins has a chance to play in week 12, and obviously Sammy Watkins 25th in the 2015 season, had 1,047 yards, 9 touchdowns, and going into this year, most people had him in the middle tier, and some had him right under the elite group of wide receivers. If he comes back, and looking at my league starts the playoffs in week 14. If Sammy Watkins could come back and shake off the rust in week 12 and week 13, and I could have a Sammy Watkins for the playoffs, that would be a phenomenal grab. It's between Watkins and Dion Lewis, who's at the top for the stash list. And if you can get Sammy Watkins, I would definitely do it. Last but not least is the streaming kicker of the week. And this week, in what should be a very high scoring game, I'm going with Caleb Sturgis of the Philadelphia Eagles. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it and that is all. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at SwissArmy94. Also, feel free to comment, like, and subscribe.